Hello everyone and welcome to another video. Now, where did I find a GTX 1060 Founders Edition in 2023, I hear you ask? Well, Cashies, of course. I'm ashamed to admit I didn't know these existed until I saw it. I've owned 1070 and 1080 Ti Founders Editions, but I always thought the 1060 was a third-party only card, and I am so glad that it's not. I think these were probably still in quite limited supply because a quick look on eBay reveals about 4 listings total across the UK and US. What's even better about this is that it comes with the original box and documentation, and although both are a little worse for wear, this is still a very welcome inclusion. I paid £99 for this, which is about the going rate at the moment, maybe a little less. Let's take a look around this Founders Edition card then and play some games. Now, I absolutely love this design. Unlike the more expensive 10 series reference cards, most of the black PCB is exposed. There's no clear window between the silver parts on the shroud either. Maybe Nvidia wanted to clearly demonstrate that this was a lower cost option. While we're on the subject, this retailed new at $299 in the US and £279 in the UK, which was higher on paper than partner designed cards, though I'm assuming that just like when the 1080 launched, a lot of online retailers priced their stock at above recommended retail price, so the Founders card here probably ended up costing less than those. This definitely would have been the one I'd have gone for if I was in the market for a 1060 back in 2016. I'm a sucker for the iconic GeForce GTX green glow and the blower style setup, which is audible even at low load as the single fan never stops, but in my opinion it doesn't get overly or annoyingly loud even when gaming. My Founders 1080 Ti was the same. I've always thought of myself as pretty sensitive to GPU fan noise as well. If you've become accustomed to, say, quiet multi-fan Asus or MSI cards over the years, then a Founders GPU probably won't be for you, however. Just like most 1060s, this one has a single 6-pin connector, which most power supplies, old or new, should be able to accommodate, so a 1060 in 2023 is very accessible for a lot of people, given the plummeting prices as well. Let's get into some games then. To start, we have Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2. For the settings, I've gone with 1080p resolution as I have done throughout this video, and for card I've selected the balanced preset. Nothing else has been changed and no upscaling options are selected. The SMAAT2X anti-aliasing has been set to normal quality also. I've tried to target 60 frames per second throughout this video, something that the 1060 can do if you manage your expectations. In Call of Duty, this was possible as an average with the settings across the 3 maps that I tested while playing Team Deathmatch. There will be some dips below this, which is to be expected, but overall the experience is decent, especially for a GPU that now costs around the £100 or dollar mark, depending on the version of the card you buy, of course. Cyberpunk 2077 next, and for this I chose medium crowd density, although this is more of a CPU intensive option, so I could have honestly gone for high. Every other setting was set to its lowest apart from textures, which remained at high, which we can do thanks to the 6 gigs of VRAM. These days, the 6 gig card is most certainly worth it over the 3 GB variant. As much as I really liked it back in the day, it is getting harder to recommend. The 6 gig version is still holding up okay, however, especially with modern upscaling features such as FSR enabled. We don't need anything drastic here either, as quality FSR will do, and it's hard to tell the difference between this and native. Did you see that NPC fall over just then? It was like a character from Simpsons Hit and Run. Cyberpunk 2077 has definitely seen some performance improvements over time, and it seems to be running really well on this once very popular card. When Fortnite got an Unreal Engine 5 upgrade, I did wonder what it would do to the performance of older and once capable cards like this. Thankfully, to hit at least 60 frames per second, we can still go with the high preset and maintain 100% res scaling. If you want more frames, there is plenty of headroom, lots of options for customization here, so there are probably a lot more frames to be seen with reduced quality settings. With that said, I really wanted to push this card today while still attempting to maintain a 60 FPS average where possible, and here we can do that while also enjoying the new and improved visuals that Fortnite offers. I actually really like how this looks with the new effects and lighting, to be honest. The engine really complements the art style. In Red Dead Redemption 2, I decided to opt for ultra textures as normal but stuck to mostly medium elsewhere. I'm showing you the exact settings here today so that you have something to work with if you have a 1060 yourselves or you want one, and want somewhere to start as far as tweaking graphics goes. This is very much a 1080p card in 2023, I think that much is obvious. That's fine considering that 1080p is still by far the most common resolution. That said, look elsewhere if you want a solid 1440p experience. Now here in Red Dead I didn't quite get 60 FPS, but it was pretty close and some areas will hit and exceed this target. I find the settings I went with to be a nice balance between performance and visuals. It looks really good actually, and I think it will continue to hold up for a while yet. Perhaps the same could be said about the card, but we'll have to see as we progress through a year of some pretty big game releases. For The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt Next Gen Edition, I started with DX12 and opted for a mixture of medium and high. The post-processing options, or what used to be called the post-processing options, were set to off, just out of personal preference to be fair. I went with DX12 mode because I thought we might need to rely on FSR, but even at native 1080p, the game was enjoyable with a high frame rate with these in-game settings. As per usual, there were a few dips and drops here and there, especially within the city walls, but nothing major by any means. I don't think the card has been getting too hot or loud throughout my testing either. I think that because it starts off noisier at idle, the increase in decibels under load doesn't really seem as significant, if you know what I mean. So it's not like going from silent to noisy, it's just going from slightly noisy to slightly more noisy. I wasn't sure what to do with Spider-Man as far as settings were concerned, but ultimately I settled for medium with nothing else changed. No upscaling was enabled here, so this is once again native 1080p. I expected to have to use FSR or reduce the quality options to low, but it turns out this wasn't necessary. This still looks really good at medium, and although there were a few little dips in those busier downtown and park areas, the frame rate remained mostly solid and the game looks good. There isn't too much difference between medium and low visually, so it might be worth considering lowering a few more options if you want more consistent performance, but as always that's up to you. The 1060 Founders Edition continues to battle on with some serious tenacity, that's for sure. I've added Sons of the Forest to the benchmarks here because it can be quite demanding, but it looks really good even at lower settings, and that's a good job because low is what we went with. I did have TAA enabled as well for the sake of those jagged edges, but unlike my 750 Ti test, we now have texture resolution set to 4. This is another good example of where that 6 gigs of VRAM comes in handy because even at low we're using around 5.7. This does have FSR for those that want to use it of course, and lowering the texture res may help with frame rates as well, but I think that playing at low is more than acceptable because it is still quite visually impressive. I'm very new to this game, so I haven't accomplished much yet. As you can see, I've mostly been wandering around chopping down trees, which in itself is quite satisfying. And this is very much a playable and enjoyable experience on Nvidia's near 7-year-old mid-range GPU. In Elden Ring, hitting the 60 FPS cap consistently was as simple as opting for the high preset and turning the grass down to medium for good measure. This probably wasn't necessary, but it gives us a little more headroom to work with. Motion blur and depth of field are also off as a personal choice, though I can't imagine they have any effect on performance whatsoever. As you can see here, the game looks fantastic and runs like a dream, hitting the default cap. I'm so used to running this at lower settings that I'm always really impressed whenever I switch it to high with a more capable card. It looks really good and of course remains solid FPS wise. Now I may have been asking a bit too much of the 1060 in Hogwarts Legacy, but nonetheless I chose high textures, the medium preset and low fog with FSR quality. I definitely could have dropped a few of these options for a better chance at a solid 60 FPS, or maybe even increase the upscaling intensity with another FSR option. With that said, 55 FPS was the average, so pretty close, and I still found this quite impressive given how difficult or demanding this one can be, especially for older cards. I'm fairly happy with this result, and considering Hogsmeade and the surrounding forest is quite system intensive, I've no doubt we'd be seeing at least 60 FPS in other areas, such as within Hogwarts itself. Finally then we have Forza Horizon 5, 1080p with TAA enabled here and the high preset. Nothing else was changed and no upscaling was enabled yet again. I wasn't sure if the Founders Edition 1060 would be able to do 60 FPS, especially in a multi-competitor race, where the frame rates are generally a little lower, but even in such situations, we averaged at least this coming in at 70. This will get higher outside of races, especially when we're just cruising around the countryside and coast. It looks excellent at these settings, by the way, and once again, because I'm usually testing older and weaker cards, it's always nice to switch things up to high or ultra and really enjoy the visuals every so often. To conclude, the 1060 has still got it. It's still a capable card, perhaps surprisingly capable in 2023. The Founders Edition, in my opinion, still looks the part too, though opinions on that will certainly differ. Now, it's not too loud as far as I'm concerned, and it uses just one 6-pin connector, plus it's of a sensible size, so it should fit in most micro ATX systems. Furthermore, if like me you enjoy seeing that illuminated GeForce GTX logo through your side panel, then one of these cards may very well be worth it. You might have to make some visual sacrifices, and how long the 1060 will remain recommendable is anyone's guess, but it's far from retirement just yet. If you enjoyed this one, leave a like down below, leave a dislike if you didn't. Let me know if you still use a 1060 in the comments, of course. Subscribe to the channel if you want to and you haven't done so already, and hopefully I'll see all of you in the next one.